All right, good afternoon to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Remeisha. Shade is that time of the afternoon. You know it, time to track the tropics. And we've got about another month of this to get through day by day before we can say goodbye to the 2024 Atlantic Basin hurricane season. It's been fairly active and it's been a deadly season at times with some major hurricanes impacting the U.S., particularly Hurricane Helene did some major damage, and also Milton, of course, which grew to a Category 5 at one point in the Gulf of Mexico before it made landfall in Florida. So we've had several named storms so far this season. In fact, 15 stretching from Alberto all the way to Oscar. We've had 10 of those named storms become hurricanes. Those hurricanes are Beryl, Debbie, Ernesto, Francine, Helene, Isaac, Kirk, Leslie, Milton, and Oscar. And out of those 10 hurricanes, 4 of those, of course, became major hurricanes, and those major hurricanes included Beryl, also Helene, Kirk, and Milton. So at this point, we're kind of getting a temporary lull or break in the action. No named storms in the Atlantic Basin right now, but look at this. We've still got some names that have not been used on this list that could potentially need to be used because we've still got a month and a few days before hurricane season is over. So the next name on the list would be Patty, then Raphael. So do we have the potential for a Patty to be out there as a tropical system over the next week? The answer is yes. There's at least a decent medium chance of that happening right in the Caribbean Sea. This is what we're expecting. Area of low pressure will likely develop in the southwestern Caribbean. It could happen over the next 2 to 5 days, or it may take 6 to 7 days, but likely it's going to happen by the weekend. We could have a tropical storm or Hurricane Patty by early next week. So the models are showing by Monday in the central Caribbean, yes, there could be a tropical system. And like I said, the next name would be that P name, which would be Patty. This is not expected to move towards Texas. That is good news, but it is expected to move towards the central Caribbean and likely get very close to Haiti, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, and also Cuba, and maybe even impact parts of Florida. So that's why we are still keeping a close eye on this disturbance. It's not quite a tropical system yet, but it is a disturbance. You can see it here. It is in the southwestern Caribbean Sea with that medium 40% chance for development. You can see that it is just to the north and northwest of Panama, and it is sitting just off that east coast of Central America. Notice the area highlighted in orange. That is the area of that potential development and the general area that it would likely track off to the northeast. So this is the disturbance, this big red blob that you see here. That is convection showers and storms, fairly disorganized at this time. However, models are indicating that conditions are fairly favorable out there in this part of the Caribbean for development. We don't have a ton of shear in the atmosphere, and we still have very warm water temperatures. So we do think this could start to develop into a broad area of low pressure that could get more organized over the next week. So the chance of that happening over the next 24 to 48 hours, not looking good. I don't think we'll have a Patty for the next few days at least, but as we go into the next 7 days, over the next week, that chance for development jumps from a 0% chance to a 40% chance, and that puts it in the medium category for development. Notice where this is located. This is very close to Central America. There's Miami. Houston way over here, so we are not expecting this system to head up towards the Houston area. However, it is still going to have a decent shot to become our next tropical storm or hurricane, so we are keeping a close eye on it because even though it may not head to Houston, it could still bring some very heavy rain to, like I said, Haiti, Dominican Republic, flood potential for possibly Jamaica, Cuba, and some of those tropical downpours could potentially make it up towards Florida as well. What does our long-range futurecast say about this? Well, let's check it out as we look at it hour by hour. Notice as we go towards tonight, and I'll stop the clock here around 11 p.m., just general showers and storms, just kind of messy, cloudy, stormy weather across Central America up for some of the Caribbean islands, but just nothing that's getting super organized at this time. Let's continue to head into the future. Wednesday and all the way through Halloween night, Thursday night, we'll stop the clock here around 11 p.m. Notice that there's still a lot of green showing up on the map. So a lot of shower activity around Central America, Mexico, for some of the Caribbean islands, but still not a ton of organization with our potential tropical system in the Western Caribbean. However, things start to change a little bit as we get into the weekend and beyond. Saturday, Sunday, and especially on Monday, we are starting to see a little more organization with this potential tropical system. So I think by Monday, we'll likely have at least a tropical depression, if not a tropical storm. It would likely be in the Central Caribbean, getting close to Jamaica, bringing some heavy rain potentially to parts of Haiti, Dominican Republic, and some of that moisture could get shoved up towards the Florida area and maybe other parts of the Gulf Coast in the U.S. So we will have to monitor this closely. But for now, just keep in mind that hurricane season is not over just yet. We are getting closer to the end of hurricane season, but we can still get tropical systems popping up on us at this point of the season. One of those reasons why we're still thinking we could get a tropical system is because the water temps are super warm out there, even with it being just a few days away from November. We've got those water temperatures still well into the 80s for the western and northwestern portions of the Caribbean Sea. Notice those sea surface temps, 84 degrees, 85 degrees. So super steamy considering it's almost November. Even into the Gulf of Mexico, we've still got several water temp readings in the 80s. Notice in the northern Gulf, the water trying to cool off a touch in the upper 70s, but the majority of the Gulf, the western, northwestern Caribbean, and the western Atlantic still super steamy water temps. Of course, that warm water acts as fuel for these tropical systems. So I think that we could still have maybe another couple of tropical systems before we can wrap things up for the 2024 hurricane season. Like I said earlier, it's already been a busy season. So far for this season, 15 named storms, which is above the average of 14, 10 hurricanes, which is above the average of 7 hurricanes for a season. And out of those, 4 major hurricanes, which is 1 above the norm of 3 major hurricanes that we would typically experience in an entire hurricane season. Of course, at the beginning of the season, NOAA predicted anywhere from 17 to 24 named storms, 8 to 13 hurricanes out of those 4 to 7 major hurricanes. So we've reached those ranges for hurricanes and major hurricanes. And if we have a couple more named storms, we will be also right in that range that NOAA predicted at the beginning of the season for number of named storms. So all along, we were thinking, most of the forecasters were thinking that this would be a super active, above average season. And for the most part, that has verified, and it's not over yet. We've still got a few days to get through in October, and we've still got all of November. So here are the areas that we typically look at to see, hey, where could we have the best shot for tropical systems to form for the last few days of October? And that would be the western Atlantic down into that part of the Caribbean that we've been closely monitoring for that next tropical system. So that would be western, northwestern portions of the Caribbean, and also the Gulf of Mexico. Chances get much lower for tropical systems as we go into November for the Gulf of Mexico, but we do still have a tiny chance. So of course we will be monitoring the entire Atlantic basin, but these are just typically some of the formation zones that will have that higher shot for tropical activity. So let's look at where we are concerned about maybe a tropical system developing in November. Notice the chance is much lower, but the areas highlighted in yellow indicate where it is still at least a possibility, and that is going to be parts of the western Atlantic, this little section of the central Atlantic, and then also that west southwestern portion of the Caribbean and the northwestern Caribbean. Notice the Gulf of Mexico. Most of the Gulf of Mexico cleared from tropical storm formation or tropical system development. but it is not a 0% chance, a very low chance, but of course something that we will be monitoring closely. But typically, once you get to the final month of hurricane season, tropical action, tropical activity kind of starts to dwindle. But you don't want to let your guard down completely because it's been a super active season. And yes, there could be 1 or 2 more tropical storms or hurricanes that could mess with parts of the Atlantic basin. So we are very close to the month of November. Once we get to the beginning of November, that will leave us exactly 1 month to get through before we can say goodbye to this hurricane season. Notice the peak of hurricane season was back on September 10th. And ever since then, we kind of been slowly but surely going down that roller coaster with decreasing activity, at least historically. But notice right around October 20th, there's kind of a little peak, little mini peak there. So there's still the chance for some action towards the end of October and even into November. That means you always need to make sure you have a plan of action just in case. There's always that outside chance that a tropical system heads our way. Know your evacuation routes, make sure you know where your insurance papers are, make sure you have the coverage you need, and make sure you have that emergency hurricane gear ready to go just in case you need it. Also, make sure you have the supplies you need to protect your home before the hurricane. Make sure to protect yourself and your family members during the hurricane, and make sure you have what you need to clean up after a potential hurricane. Okay, well, that is all that I have for you today. Stay safe out there. That will do it for your tropical update for today. At least nothing as of now heading towards the Houston or Southeast Texas area. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Remeisha Shade. Enjoy the rest of your day.